let's settle down so that we can have next talk. So we have next Mikel Asla from Keensoft. He's working with as a software engineer over there, and he'll be talking about running Alfresco under Docker first.
Hi all, thanks for attending this session. Before I start, I wanted to mention Philippe Dubois, who was supposed to be speaking here, but he had a health problem, so just hope he's getting better and willing to meet him in the next conference. So we just go quickly to see the topics that I wanted to talk about. First, I want to do a very simple Docker overview, so we all know what we're talking about. And then we go through some very simple concepts of how to run Docker, Alfresco in containers. And then comes the main topic, which is what we have done so far, what we are doing right now with Docker and Alfresco. And finally, we got the future lines of action topic. So, Docker overview. What's Docker and what Docker can do for us? Docker is a technology that allows me to define a whole application running with all binaries, starting from the operating system, all the dependencies needed, configuration, everything you need to make your application run. And then you can package that, ship nicely, and just run it everywhere. So that's the main concept about what Docker can do for us. So when you first come to container-like technologies, you may start to think on virtual machines, and they aren't. We got there in the left-hand side, we got Docker, and we got traditional virtualization technologies on the right. And as you can see, Docker doesn't need a hardware abstraction layer, and it doesn't neither need to virtualize the whole guest operating system. Instead, Docker is able to run like local processes in such a way that you can look to them as if they were secure, isolated containers. And it does so only using Linux kernel capabilities. So the very first component, or the core, is called the Docker host, and is composed of two things, which is the Docker engine, or the daemon, and the Docker client. And these two components working together, they give me the ability to do lots of things, but mainly three tasks, which is to build Docker images based on Docker files, which are just text files with a specific syntax to define the whole application running. Then I can run containers based on that image I built. And the third is just I can publish those images in a public or in a private repository. So I put it here, and a small picture taken from Wikipedia, just to see that Docker is talking directly to the Linux kernel. And we got here like those nice kernel capabilities that, by the way, they have been there for a long time. Then we got another important Docker components. We cannot see this very good, but we already talked about Docker host. We now have Docker Hub. Docker Hub is like the GitHub idea for Docker images, so you can have a public account there and just pull images, learn from others, and so on. Then we got Docker Swarm, which is the native technology for Docker clustering, where you can scale and distribute containers nicely. Then we got there Docker Machine, which is just a tool to provision Docker host, and is needed on Mac and Windows machines because they don't have that Linux kernel capabilities natively. So Docker Machine just makes like a little virtual machine with Linux on it, and you can run Docker on Mac and Windows. Then we got also the Docker file. We already talked about it. It's just a text file with a specific syntax, to define the whole application. And lastly, we got the Docker Compose, which is a nice tool to manage multi-container applications, which is the case for Alfresco, or it may be the case for Alfresco. So, Dockerized Alfresco, or running Alfresco in containers. How can we achieve this? Here you got a very ugly picture. I'm not very good at drawing, but in this approach, we got 5 containers running in the same Docker host, and all the components separated. This is just one approach. We could just run everything in one container, and we can just run this in a distributed way. So we can manage from one Docker client, many Docker hosts, and just distribute and then use Swarm or Docker Compose to scale them accordingly. So that's about running Alfresco in containers, and it's very easy. You only need to make some folders for each component you want to run in a container, and then put a Docker file on each folder, and then a Docker Compose file to run everything at the same time. I wanted to point that the order of the B distro is experimenting now with Docker. You can see Martin and also Darren, they have done a great job in that GitHub project. And they have also built a specific tool which replaces Docker Compose and has more flexibility on doing container dependency management. So you can, for example, make the Solar container start when a specific message appears in another container slot. So it's very flexible, it's cool, and they are willing for contributors. So you go there. Alfresco is also testing Docker, which I found it interesting, and I put it here, some resources. First one is about an approach to run Alfresco in containers with support for enterprise license. And the second one is about a test they did to improve their continuous integration pipeline. And they try some kind of database vendor combination, complicated combination with Docker. And it's a very good post, very interested. Here I put it also 2 popular Docker Hub repositories running Alfresco in containers. You can check them and just play with it. So, our approach, what we've done with this, and what do we think is the simplest thing we can now just do, and we have incorporated to our day-to-day development. We were thinking first to change all our integration lifecycle, to make those nice automations and stuff. But then we realized that we have some considerations about data persistence. Also, that Docker is changing so fast. There are so many new features every single week. And really, Docker is not designed for Java big applications. It's not designed for a Spring, Alfresco's Spring huge context. It's more designed for microservices. But as I said, it's changing so quick. And also, they are making big efforts to make Windows run in containers. So I think this is going to improve a lot. Also, support for other kind of processes. So when we finished with those tests, we thought in another approach, which was to replicate our clients' environments. That's very easy to do right now, and it's a kind of useful to test all our committed code in something like the client replicated environment. So that way, our development just continues the same. We like the Maven SDK, and we like to continue using it. But eventually, just with a little scripting, we can take our committed code and just run it in this replicated environment. So not just developers, other members of the company can just run this environment to see maybe the development process, or maybe to see that the developers are doing good coding. Because we normally had like Windows developers, Linux, Mac, and everyone has like his local development environment. That way, we think that we go one step further, and we are coding everything against our client environment in a way. So also, it could be useful for non-technical members also. So how we did that? We first need to make some container templates, basically thinking on what Alfresco supports and what our client requirements are. This is a very simple idea. And we found it like doing very simple templates, very small, do little things, so it's easy to maintain, it's easy to change, and it's easy to upgrade. So the next step is to make like project level templates, and there comes all the client configurations. So we just think that the simplest way to do this is to take our document, our project document, is the same document that we ship to the client, where we accurately document all the steps we did in the client server. So we just take that document and leave it and declare it in our Docker files. Sorry. And lastly, we have some other requirements that cannot be addressed with Docker right now, but they will. But there is only a little configuration need to be done in order to these containers can communicate with, for example, Active Directory, which is a requirement for us, so we can test Kerberos single sign-on and everything inside this replicated environment. So we end up with something like this. As you see, this is our nested template-like system. We started from, because we thought in our real case, use case, sorry, and the client is running CentOS. So we started from official CentOS repository. It's a good idea to start with official repositories because you know CentOS people is behind. And then comes our first template, which is just starting from there, downloads Java 8 and install it. That's it. That's all the template does. And then we got the second template. We just starting from Oracle Java 8, just downloads Apache Tomcat, and that's it. And then we got like the Alfresco specific version base template, which just downloads Alfresco distribution zip file and leaves it in a temp folder. That's all it does. Because there are other approaches like using the installer or whatever. But in this way, I like it because it's simple and you can use it to maybe run Solar in a container, everything or any combination you may think of, just with the same template. So then we go to our Git repository. Whenever a new project starts, in our Git repository, we make another folder called Docker, and there we put our project-specific Docker files, also all the configuration I told, all the dependencies, and a nice compose file to bring everything together. Here you can find all that we done in this idea. All that we did is publish it there, so you can just download it, make some change improvements, and hopefully give us some feedback. Also, I wanted to give you another resources about other images that we have needed in order to test Alfresco components. You always need a kind of this. So, which are the benefits at this point? I already said that this way we can say that the code is tested in a client stack-based containers. So we can have like a very early feeling of how things are getting on. Also, as I said, other members of the other departments of the company can just run this environment without having to install anything locally. And also, by the way, we are using a standard deployment system to deploy our MPS. So nothing is very exotic. It's just we are just working in the same way we did before, but we have another possibility to whenever we think is useful, just run this environment. And also we found it useful to, for example, to fix, to reproduce issues coming to our Jira. So whenever the client says it's got a problem, we can reproduce it in this kind of client-like containers. Also, I wanted to point that I did the first proof of concept I did was like a different approach, was everything running in one container. And my project was forked by 2 Alfresco engineers, which is something to be proud of. And they contribute updating Alfresco. Then we'll also added core support and the Docker Compose file actually. So you can just see and check those projects because they are very well done. And finally, we got our future lines of action topic, which is the place where we want to be very soon. We have just tested and it's working fine, but there are some considerations there about Docker volumes, because Docker is based on layers, and all layers are read only, except from the last one where you can read the application writes on it, and you have to handle that layer in order to share with different environments, and you can just test your code because you have to build in one container and then pass those artifacts to your running containers in order to test that code. And when we have this ready, we can do like this nice workflow. So a developer just pushes to the Git repo, and then Jenkins can just copy everything it needs to run containers, then test our code inside those containers, and actually then publishing those images to the registry, so you can ship them to the client directly and run production, which is a kind of the goal, the final goal for this. So I think I speak too yeah, I was too fast, but we got now like 2 minutes if you have any questions on this. Sorry. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's okay. I can just ask. So, what are you doing for volume persistence?
Okay. We thought in one concept that is called volume-only containers, and I think that this is the best approach, to have like a special container that holds the persisted data, and then you can share that volume with all containers at runtime. So that way, you may have Jenkins compiling all that code in that volume-only container, and that container can be like nested with the Alfresco containers. So I think that's the best approach, because we started with another, but then it's a little bit tricky to get that code into the running container, because Jenkins can be a little, or maybe the plugins we test were a little bit complicated to make that Alfresco container running can just see that container. We have playing with kinematic, which is like the project is in the GitHub. We don't like a lot. There are some privative solutions also, but the test we did was with a non-technical guy, and he was only 2 commands like docker compose app, docker compose logs alfresco, so only 2 commands to run. So we don't think there is so much effort to be done in order to avoid this, you know. But it's cool. It's a good question, and I think there's something missing there right now. In
We tried Docker UI and Mist.io, and we weren't too satisfied with either of them.
Oh, sorry.
Because of those bugs.
Yeah, no, I don't like it neither. Yep.
Are you these Docker images in production? And if so, what's doing?
No, we haven't get there. That's our goal, but you need to change the client culture first. And I think we are on that road, definitely. In some years, I think everything is going to be running in containers. But right now, as I said, we need to figure out and to resolve some issues about persistent data and make like the very best strategy to be confident, you know. But it's not a matter of technical problems, because it's very easy to do. But you know, you need to change also all the client infrastructure in order to make it. So I think it's going to be like that. So that's why we thought that we need to do something, because if we are going to be in this world, we need to be prepared for that. Hi, Info. Yeah. No, not really. We haven't get that. As I said, we only did like a very simple proof of concept using Jenkins. I don't know, I can't remember the name, but there are like 5 or 4 different plugins for Jenkins and Docker. And we tested like 3, but we haven't get there, honestly. Sorry, I can't hear properly. Sorry, can you repeat, please?
I was wondering if you're doing anything special in regard to managing application configuration.
Client configuration.
Application configuration.
How we did? Yeah, we just when you look, sorry, to a Docker file, you will realize that there are just Linux commands being thrown. So we only use like move, set, and this kind of Linux commands in order to reproduce accurately what we got in the project document. So the project document is responsible of replicating every step we did in the client servers, and then we just need to take those very same commands to the Docker file. That's all.